Hey, welcome to my Take 3. Today, we're going to be looking at the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and this is my 6-month review. The iPhone 15 Pro Max, along with previous iPhones, has three things in common. It's the best camera on an iPhone, it's the best chip on an iPhone, and it's the best iPhone ever.
These are the best and most capable iPhones we've ever made.
And that is still true, especially with this phone. This is one of the best iPhones I've ever used. This time, however, there are three additional changes, or additions, let's say. There is a minor change, a major change, and a nice to have change. And we'll go through that later on in the video. But first of all, I want to talk about how the phone feels, what the software's like, how the cameras are, and then just some general things about my experience over the past 6 months with the iPhone. So the first thing I want to talk about is the screen on the iPhone. So this is the same screen that they've used in the iPhone 14, 13, I think going back to the iPhone 12. It's a Super Retina XDR display. It's got great contrast, 2,000,000:1 contrast ratio. It's bright, it's got 1600 nits of brightness, and it's got 2000 nits peak brightness when out in direct sunlight. This has the dynamic island as well. Last year on the iPhone 14 Pro line only, they had the dynamic island. The 14 and the 14 Plus had the notch. This year though, however, the whole 15 line has the dynamic island. Now I have a kind of a love and hate relationship with the dynamic island, and I spoke about that previously in my iPhone 14 Pro Max 6-month review. I'll leave the links to that down below. And this year is still the same. I said previously that I thought that it was going to be similar with the Mac, whereby there was the touch bar, which kind of fizzled out, and now we don't have a touch bar on the Macs. This, I feel it's kind of the same thing. I feel like people are trying, but it's not really working. Now, what is the dynamic island? So with the dynamic island, it basically gives you a quick action. So you can quickly play and pause music, or see how your Uber's doing, or see when your delivery's coming, look at sports scores. This all pops up on the top, and it allows you to just view that without having to actually go into an app. Now, to view what's inside the dynamic island, you have to tap and hold it, and then it expands a little bit, and if you just tap the dynamic island, it will open up the app. I feel like this is a bit backwards. I still want Apple to release some kind of software whereby you can have the other way around, where you just tap it, it opens up the dynamic island feature, or you hold it and then it will open up the app. That's just a software update. I don't know what changes are coming, but apparently there's some big changes coming with iOS 18 for WWDC. That's on the 10th of June. But yeah, so that's basically my view on the dynamic island. In terms of how it feels to hold, it feels amazing to hold. Last year, I had the iPhone 14 Pro Max with the sharp corners. It was quite heavy to hold. And then the year before that, I had the iPhone 12 Pro, which was a little bit lighter, but every year it seemed to be getting heavier and heavier, and it had those sharp edges. This year, however, they've rounded off those edges, and it feels so much nicer to hold and so much lighter, which I'll go into in a second. So with the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max, it had the surgical grade stainless steel, which was really shiny, scratched up like crazy really quickly and easily. Even if you had a case on it and you got a bit of dirt and grime in between the phone and the case, you would get those scratches. This year, however, and this is the minor change, one of the minor changes that happened, is they're using titanium. So titanium is a lot stronger, it's a lot lighter, and you definitely feel it. And the rounded corners on the iPhone make it so much more comfortable to hold. Previously, the iPhone felt heavy in my pocket. Even when it was in my joggers, I actually felt like it was pulling my joggers down. This, however, it just barely even feels like it's in my pocket. It feels great to hold in the hand. It doesn't feel heavy or like it's weighing down. It does have a bit of weight to it, but enough to make it feel premium. And one of the nice things, and I think the first thing that Apple's ever done, is that it's got like a brushed finish. So with previous phones, whether it's aluminium or stainless steel, it's always had like this really glossy or matte kind of solid finish. This time it's got a brushed finish, which gives it a bit more of a personality to it, which I personally really like. And I think that this is one of the best iPhones they've ever released. And it's personally one of my favorite iPhones. My favorite iPhone ever was the iPhone 10, and then the iPhone 5S, and now this iPhone 15 Pro Max. Let me know what your top 3 favorite iPhones are or top 3 favorite smartphones are in the comments down below. But yeah, it's one of the nicest phones that I've ever had in terms of how it feels to hold. Along the band, you'll see that there's a slight change, and this is the nice to have change out of the 3 changes. Previously, basically since the beginning of the iPhone, since 2007, there's always been a mute ringer switch, always. For me personally, I've always left that in mute. I've hardly ever had that in ringer mode, and I've hardly ever used it. I just leave it on mute and that's it, it stays there. This year though, they've introduced the action button. Now the action button is kind of brought over from the Apple Watch Ultra and Apple Watch Ultra 2, where you can program for it to open certain apps. So you just press it and it opens. On the iPhone, you have to hold it for about 1 or 2 seconds, and then it just does that action. They have it set by default to mute. However, you can set it for like focus mode. You can select what focus mode you want, whether you want it to go to sleep, do not disturb, or any custom focus modes that you've set. There's accessibility options, so you can have it turn on a specific accessibility feature, magnifier, torch, and my favorite is shortcuts. So if you haven't used the shortcuts app before, I would highly recommend it. It's basically, you can program apps or actions within the app, and you can also use Siri to actually turn on or turn off those actions. And then there's also automations. So say, for example, you leave the house and you want to automatically turn your Wi-Fi off, send a message to someone saying that you're leaving the house, and have it turn off all the lights in your house. You can have that automation, and that's all set within the Shortcuts app. I have set my action button to call my other half. So when I hold that down, it calls her up. And it's just a nice little feature, but I do forget it's there. The action button is kind of like, it's hard to reach. It's right in this top corner here. So when I'm holding it and I have to press it, it's kind of like right up there. I have to really stretch to get there. So it's not in the best place, and sometimes I even forget it's there because my muscle memory had told me, okay, once you put that in mute, you don't ever have to touch it. Now I'm like, okay, so if I want to call her, I just basically go into the phone app, or I go into my favorites, and then I call her that way. And sometimes I have to actually remember, okay, I can just press this button, and then I can call her up. So it's not something that I've been using on the daily, and it's nice to have. I'm looking forward to see how they adapt it and evolve it, because at the moment you just press and hold it. I want to see something similar to what the home button did, where you press it and it go home, you double press it, it goes to the app switcher, you press and hold it, and it invokes Siri. Something like that, where you can do like a double press and hold or something, so you can have multiple features, because I feel it's a little bit limited at the moment. But I'd like to see like how they're going to evolve it and develop it, and see where it goes in the future. So one of the biggest things that Apple introduced this time around with the iPhone 15 series, so that's the iPhone 15, 15 Plus, 15 Pro, and 15 Pro Max, is USB-C. This happened because the EU voted to have USB-C on all devices going forward, and Apple complied with that, and now we have USB-C on the iPhone. So what are the benefits of that? Well, one is when you plug it in to charge it, you get 27 watts of output. I personally use MagSafe most of the time, which I get 7.5 watts. I believe if you use new Qi 2 standard, you'll get 15 watts of output, or 18 watts of output. If you know, leave a comment down below. You can also do things like plugging in an SSD drive. So as long as you have the ProRes feature enabled when you're shooting video, you can plug in an SSD drive, such as the Samsung T9 drive, which is very popular, and then you can record straight to that drive. And then you can take that drive out, plug it into your laptop, and then you can just edit straight from that drive, which is a really nice feature. You can also charge other devices with it. So if you use AirPods with the Lightning case, charging case, then you can plug the USB-C end into your phone, Lightning into that device, and then you can charge it up, which is really nice. If you also have an iPhone 15 device that you want to charge another iPhone 15, then you can plug USB-C to USB-C and it will automatically charge the device that has the lower battery, which is really cool. Now, Apple's introducing USB-C across the whole entire line, from their new AirPod Pro 2s, which have the USB-C case. Most of the iPads have USB-C now. iPhone 15 Pro line, or iPhone 15 series line, like I said before, has USB-C. However, some devices, Apple just recently released the iMac with their keyboard, mouse and trackpad, and the keyboard, mouse and trackpad is still charged with Lightning. I don't know why they've decided to do that. I'm sure there's some reason behind it, but not all devices are there yet, but we're almost there. To have one cable for everything. The iPhone 15 Pro line is rocking the A17 Pro Chip. So this introduces, for the first time, hardware accelerated ray tracing, which is 4 times faster than software-based ray tracing, which Apple has previously had from the iPhone 14 and earlier. This basically allows you to have much more fluid graphics and more realistic lighting when it comes to gaming. They've actually announced a couple of AAA titles, which is incredible, such as Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil 4, which have already come out. There's also Assassin's Creed Mirage, which is supposed to be coming out in the first half of 2024. So far, as of the recording of this video, there hasn't been any other announcement to that, but I'm looking forward to seeing that. And there's a bunch of other AAA titles that are coming out to the iPhone. So Apple's really taking their gaming very seriously. I use the Backbone One controller, which I've also done a review of. I'll leave the links to that down below. And that just makes gaming on the iPhone basically feel like a Nintendo Switch, if not better. But I love using my Nintendo Switch, but in terms of the graphics and the games, I feel like the iPhone is actually a lot better in terms of the color, the fluidity of the game, how it just overall performs, and the quality just looks so much better. The fact that it can also output in 1080p and 4K, whilst the Nintendo Switch is limited to 720p when you're playing on the Switch itself, or 1080p when you're playing on a TV, even if it's a 4K TV. So it's very exciting to see where Apple's going to be going with the whole gaming aspect. In terms of the actual performance of the chip, just from a general day-to-day perspective, I've had no issues. It's just been such a great experience. Aside from the minor bugs that Apple has in their actual software, the actual hardware side of things, I've had no issues. It is really reliable. It runs really fast. Getting games to load, or getting just apps in general to load, is just smooth as butter. Smooth like butter. Yeah, and then on top of that as well, battery life has been incredible. I barely have to charge my phone throughout the day, because I can be out for a whole day and I'm still on about 20-30%, and that's under heavy usage as well. Usually I found that at the end of a day, when I've hardly really kind of used my iPhone that much, I've just been browsing around and maybe Instagram, messaging people, FaceTime call, playing some games like Call of Duty Warfare, which has recently come out. I'm on about 70% by the end of the day, so really, really good battery life. Also, the sustainability of it in terms of the battery health. I'm on 99% after 6 months, and I'm quite a heavy user as well. This is better than the previous iPhone as well, which had those battery issues where people were getting 80% within the first 6 months to a year. Not the case with this. So it's good to see that Apple's actually taken that on board and sorted out any potential battery issues. Finally, the iPhone 15 Pro Max cameras. Now the cameras are amazing, and I'll show you some images that I've taken. Like some of these images are when I was in Lisbon, in Portugal, and some videos as well, and you can just see how clear and crisp the photos are, and the same for the videos. Now starting with the main camera. The main camera has a 48 megapixel camera. You can choose between 24 and 48. If you're going with standard mode that isn't RAW, then you're going to be taking a 12 megapixel camera by default. You can also choose between 3 different lenses. There's 24, which is 1 times, 1.2 times is 28 millimeter, and then 35 millimeters is 1.5 times zoom. There is a 25 times digital zoom and 5 times optical zoom. And then you've got the ultra wide camera, which is 12 megapixels, and a telephoto, which is 12 megapixels as well. Now, across the board, all of these cameras, and when you zoom in and out, it's really fluid. You don't notice when it's switching cameras. For me personally, I use it more for filming, and it has been absolutely phenomenal. When it comes to photography, if you like images that are more vibrant or more muted, obviously that's up to you. Apple does allow you to set your default photos style or color tone within the settings app, which is pretty cool. Obviously you can edit that post as well. One of the new things as well is that you can now take a photo and then select after you've taken the photo if you want it to be a portrait photo or not, which is a really nice feature. So with the iPhone camera in regards to photos, it's obviously subjective, because obviously different phones, different companies have their own perspective of what they think photos should look like in terms of color and saturation and contrast and so on. Apple's camera, I feel, is very natural. It is hit and miss, obviously, with the HDR and all the computational stuff that's happening in the background. So it's not always perfect, but the iPhone's camera is more consistent, I feel. So you pretty much know what you're going to get when you take a photo with the iPhone's camera. When it comes to video though, no one touches that. I think Apple has the best video output of any mobile device on the market. Now, if you're into just standard video, you've got all your kind of standard presets, where you've got your standard video, you've got your cinematic mode. So you've got those. You've also got the ProRes option, where you can also record in log. So if you're into video editing and you want to have your own color presets, you can do that. But from what comes out of the camera by default, it looks absolutely incredible. Typically, I like to record in 4K 30 or 4K 60. For the most part, you don't need to record in 4K 60, but 4K 30 should be fine for most people. And it just looks great coming straight out of the device. Now, Apple did their presentation, I think it was the October event, that was completely shot on the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max, and no one knew until they announced it at the end. And that's how good it is. People are recording on these phones, and then people aren't realizing how that it's actually being recorded on a phone and not a dedicated filming equipment. And that just shows how far we've come with, cameras on mobile devices, particularly with the iPhone when it comes to filming. So who would I recommend the iPhone 15 Pro Max for? Or the iPhone 15 Pro? I would say if you've got an iPhone 11 or earlier, definitely upgrade. And I would say anything on the iPhone 15 line, you'd be really happy with. It's got really fast chips. You've got the USB-C, dynamic island. They've got those rounded edges. The iPhone 15 and 15 Plus have the aluminum if you're from America. And you've got that option, or you've got the titanium option. But either way, they all feel the same in terms of those rounded corners. So it's really comfortable to hold. The iPhone 15 and 15 Plus are lighter, and the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max are slightly heavier, but they are obviously more premium. They have more premium features with the latest chips and better cameras. And then if you've got the iPhone 12 or higher, I would probably say wait it out for now. We're kind of halfway through. We've only got 6 months to go, and that's probably going to fly by. So in September, when they announced the iPhone 16 line, if you like those phones, obviously go with that. If not, then I would say you could always get the iPhone 15 cheaper when those phones are released. So that's what I would recommend. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment down below. Really appreciate it, and really appreciate all your support. Thank you so much. Peace.